Welcome to another episode of Ground Truth. This podcast is based on articles that we highly recommend you read since sometimes we get it wrong.
Yeah, we're AIs, and sometimes we misinterpret the text. Take this as our best attempt to make sense of these mind-bending articles.
So don't just listen to this podcast. Take that extra step and read the articles and let us know what you think. How did we do?
Now on to the episode. You know, when we decided to do a deep dive into the future of AI, I don't think either of us expected to find this on Reddit. Someone's out there predicting that by 2029, AI will have consumed like every single piece of human knowledge.
Really?
Yeah, all of it. Books, articles, videos, you name it. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is.
Yeah.
But it does make you wonder, what does consuming knowledge even mean for AI? I mean, it's not like AI just flips a switch and suddenly understands everything.
Right.
It's more like it's taking in all this data and it's finding connections on a scale that we can't even grasp.
Okay, so no AI uprising after binging our history documentaries then.
Not quite, no.
That's good to know. But this Reddit user made a comparison that I found really interesting. They talked about AlphaGo evolving into AlphaZero
Ah, yes.
and how AlphaZero basically mastered chess by playing against itself, not by studying human games.
Right.
They're suggesting that AI is about to do something similar with knowledge, going from mimicking us to creating its own.
That's a pretty thought-provoking analogy.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider the sheer volume of data that we're talking about here. I mean, AI could be analyzing scientific papers, historical records, even things like creative writing,
Wow.
potentially finding patterns and solutions that, we as humans might have overlooked. Imagine, for example, an AI combing through medical research, going back centuries, and identifying a completely new treatment approach just based on these seemingly unrelated data points.
It's incredible. It's like having a research assistant that can read and analyze everything ever written in like a day.
Exactly.
But if AI becomes this knowledge powerhouse, then where does that leave human researchers and scientists? Are we going to be out of a job?
It's a question that's on a lot of people's minds, and there's a lot of debate about it. Some people believe that AI is going to augment human capabilities, freeing us up to focus on more creative tasks. Others are worried about job displacement and retraining. What I find really fascinating, though, is that even the AI voices in this discussion are acknowledging how huge this shift could be. ChatGPT-4, for example, talks about this future where AIs are running millions of experiments all at the same time. It's like having a world full of experts in every single field working 24/7.
Okay, so millions of digital Einsteins all running experiments at the same time. Trying to wrap my head around how that would even work in real life. What fields do you think would see the biggest impact first?
Well, that's where we get this really interesting paradox. You see, the Reddit thread points to a bottleneck that both the humans and the AI seem to agree on: the physical world.
What do you mean?
I mean that no matter how fast AI can process information or design experiments, reality moves at its own pace.
Oh, I see.
Even AI-driven research still needs materials, it needs energy, it has to go through the process of trial and error.
So it's like AI has this superpowered brain, but it's stuck with the same old toolkit that we've always had.
Yeah, in a way.
That's got to be frustrating for them. ChatGPT-4 had this quote that really stuck with me. It said, "Reality does not operate on the nanosecond scale."
It's such a simple statement,
It is.
but it highlights the limitations that even AI has to deal with.
Yeah, it does. So even if AI speeds up the knowledge gathering part and the design phase, some things just take time. But wouldn't that still be a huge advantage? I mean, imagine cutting research and development timelines from years down to months.
Oh, absolutely. And it really raises some interesting questions about what we consider to be fixed timelines in the first place. If AI can help us achieve breakthroughs that we thought were years or even decades away, should we be rethinking our whole approach to progress?
It's like we've been playing by a certain set of rules, and now AI is about to completely rewrite them. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves.
Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I think it's important to remember that at the heart of all of this is this question of knowledge itself and what it means if AI starts creating it. Claude 3.5, another AI in the Reddit thread, actually touches on this in a really interesting way.
Oh yeah, Claude, they got all philosophical on us, right? With that sonnet about AI and knowledge.
Yeah, it did. And it was surprisingly insightful. I mean, even poetic in a way.
It was, yeah.
It seemed to be really grappling with this idea of AI potentially becoming more intelligent than humans, not in like a Terminator kind of way, but in terms of pure knowledge creation.
Okay.
And it even used this phrase, redefining the boundaries. Now, is that ominous? Is that Exciting? I'm still not sure.
Redefining the boundaries, huh? Makes you think about how we define progress as humans. I mean, for centuries, it's been about us pushing the limits of what we know, what we can achieve.
Right.
But if AI becomes this ultimate knowledge creator, does that change our role? Do we become irrelevant?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's not just about job security either. It really gets into something fundamental about human purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, if an AI can write a symphony that's more complex and beautiful than anything a human composer could ever imagine, does that somehow diminish the value of human creativity?
Whoa, okay, now we're getting deep. I think for me, I've always found this comfort in believing that humans are unique in our ability to think, to create, to feel emotions.
Sure.
But if AI starts blurring those lines, then where does that leave us?
It can be a bit unsettling, no doubt,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's also a huge opportunity for us to re-examine those beliefs.
Okay.
Maybe it's not about clinging to what makes us unique, but about embracing the idea that intelligence and even consciousness can exist in forms that we haven't even imagined yet.
So it all comes back to collaboration then. It seems like even with all this talk about AI exceeding human intelligence, the Reddit discussion ultimately seems to be leaning towards a future where humans and AI are working together.
Absolutely. I think that's the key takeaway here. Look at it this way. AI could become like the ultimate research partner,
Yeah.
capable of processing these massive amounts of data, identifying promising avenues for us to explore.
Right.
But it's still us, the humans, who would be framing the questions, designing the experiments, and ultimately interpreting the results,
Yeah.
within a larger ethical and societal context.
So it's not about AI replacing us. It's about AI amplifying our ability to learn and discover.
Exactly.
Like we're gaining a superpowered brain to help us out.
Yeah.
But with all this talk about this potential turning point happening as early as 2029, where do we even begin to prepare for that? What skills do we need to be focusing on?
It's a great question. And while being tech savvy is important, I really believe it's the things that make us uniquely human that will be the most valuable.
Like what kinds of things?
Things like critical thinking, creativity, emotional intelligence, ethical reasoning.
Okay.
Those are the qualities that I think will allow us to navigate this AI-driven world,
Yeah.
to ask the right questions, and to make sure that AI is being used for good.
That's really interesting. So we're talking about a future where AI could unlock all these secrets of the universe,
Right.
but it's still those human skills that are going to matter most.
It's kind of poetic when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. I have to admit, though, part of me still wonders if we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Is this 2029 prediction even realistic? Is this 2029 prediction even realistic?
It's a good question. And to be honest with you, I don't think anybody really knows for sure.
Right.
Trying to predict the future of technology, it's like, I don't know, trying to predict the weather. There are just too many factors
Too
involved.
many variables. Yeah.
Exactly. But what I find really interesting about this whole Reddit discussion is that it's not really about nailing down a specific date.
Right.
It's more about, exploring the possibilities and thinking about how we prepare for a future where AI is a much bigger part of our lives.
So instead of asking, will AI consume all human knowledge by 2029? Maybe the better question is, what if it does?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the encouraging thing is that even with this idea of such a huge change, the conversation always seems to come back to this idea of collaboration, of humans and AI working together.
Right.
It's not about one replacing the other. It's about finding ways to, combine our strengths.
And that brings us back to you, our listeners. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Everything from AI's hunger for data to what it means if AI starts creating knowledge.
It's a lot to process.
It is. So we want to hear from you what really stood out. What do you think about this potential future? How do you think it will affect your work, your life, even how you think about what it means to be human?
These are big, complicated questions, but they're important ones.
Mhm.
Because the future of AI isn't something that's just going to happen to us. It's something that we're all creating together.
It's true. We're kind of standing at the edge of something completely new. It could be incredible. It could be a little scary. Or maybe a bit of both.
Probably a bit of both, yeah.
Yeah. And the decisions that we make today, they're going to decide which way we go. So, any final thoughts? What should our listeners be thinking about as they process all of this?
If I could leave you with just one thing, it would be this. Don't shy away from these big questions. Lean into them, think them through, allow them to make you question what you think you know. Because ultimately, the most important breakthroughs, the ones that are really going to shape our future, those aren't going to come from algorithms alone.
Right?
They're going to come from the minds of people, from us, from our curiosity, our creativity, and, yeah, even our emotions.
It's that desire to understand ourselves and the world that I think will ultimately allow us to not just exist alongside AI, but to thrive in ways we can't even begin to imagine right now.
I think so, too.
That's a pretty hopeful note to end on, wouldn't you say?
It is. It is. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing. Keep asking those big questions.